Hey guys, I'm Naya and welcome back to the channel. So today I have another guest on the channel with me. I'm joined by Nesh. He is a podcaster, streamer, YouTuber. Most of you probably know him from his podcast, from Dueling Book, from his spreadsheets and combos and a bunch of other things. And today he joined me. Well, first of all, I want to welcome you to the channel in a proper way. I'm really glad to have you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on the channel. And here we are. Today we're going to build Spright, I believe, Spright Gishki, which is a new addition from Photon Hypernova. And we're going to show you guys how to build a deck from scratch and how to adapt to the current meta.
That's what we're doing. I couldn't have said it better myself. So I wanted him to be a part of this. I think his, mind is just incredible when it comes to these things. So we're going to walk you through our thought process and everything, all of the reasonings behind them. And we want this to be like a template for you guys, not only for Spright Gishki, but for building an actual deck. And like you said, pretty much perfectly adapting it. So yeah, we chose Spright Gishki because we felt like, the Spright deck is still going to be relevant and Gishki's stuff is really interesting. And it's also like very much meta relevant since it's Photon Hypernova and new stuff and new cards and all of that. So yeah, anything else you would like to say before we get started? Or
no, to be honest, we should begin.
We should begin.
We're gonna
okay. It's gonna be a long video otherwise.
It's gonna be a long video.
All right, so starting off with everything, I guess we could just throw in Gishki stuff at first, throw in Spright stuff and just adjust accordingly.
Yeah, I believe like there is the new Gishki, the Grim one, the Ritual as a 2-off, I believe.
We have the 2-off, we have the Ritual, and then we need to look at, there's the Ritual spell.
Yeah, the Ritual spell. We are going to put one of every one, the important one. But for example, the new Gishki Ice Mirror in the first page.
We need to talk about the Ice Mirror as well.
And then on the third row, this one, the Aqua Mirror, because it recovers from the graveyard.
This one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can throw this in at first. And as you guys notice immediately, we threw in the quote unquote, the best ones. Because when you go through an engine, obviously when something like is receiving support, I guess you would go back to it, look at the other cards. And these ones sort of work in tandem if you look at some combos and if you just read through them and make sort of assumptions about how cards should function with each other. So looking at the other like Gishki stuff, at first our thought was, when you look at Gishki Abi, since it searches a monster that has 1000 or less defense, immediately we went over the ritual monsters, obviously. And just talked about the effects.
Yeah, Ghost Kraken is probably the best one to search. There is also another one, the one with the 0 defense, Ziga Gigash. It's the second page. It's on the second page. Should be the last one.
Oh, right. We talked about this one as well. Yeah.
There is also this one you can search with the shark, but it is kind of weird. So I guess we can put those in the side just in case.
We can.
And then we decide if those are worth or not to main deck, maybe for some combos.
Basically.
Then we have to run the Gishki Vision and the Gishki Shadow.
Yeah.
We can start as 2-offs, I believe, because if we are running 2 rituals, then we should play 2-offs of each.
Okay.
And then we're going to go on the Spright package. The Spright package should be like 3 blue, 3 jet, 1 red, 1 carrot.
That's the usual Spright.
1 smasher, 3 starter.
This, 3 of this, 1 smasher, 3 starter. And then for the extra deck cards, it's most definitely this, probably
3 jet.
2.
The third jet.
Okay.
And then we saw different combos online. It's going to be something related to Ibli. Is Ibli worth to run? I guess we can put one in the main deck right now, and then we can decide if our combo is going to focus on Ibli lock or not. Then the rest should be... Yeah, now the rest is literally non-engine. Ashy Blossom, I think it's mandatory in a deck like this.
We talked about non-engine spots for a long time, actually. Talked about everything. And we figured, like, it's better to go a bit more genetic. And it's better to always, I think this is like a general advice, to always just think about the matchups you're going to see most frequently and the matchups that are going to be the hardest for you and the best ones. So the best decks, basically. So you want to be covering all of these decks in the side deck in combination with the main deck. So Ash was something that came to mind, obviously because of branded and since it's generic and yeah.
I mean, branded is a consideration we can make. There is also pure Kashtira, there is Kashtira tier. And in my opinion, Ash is mandatory for Agido and Kelbeck in the graveyard, obviously, for Auphenis, for the tier element Kashtira, the new addition from Photon Hypernova. And I believe if those effects resolves against you and they pop off like in a weird manner, like sort of like Auphenis, Mille Kelbeck or Mille Agido, you're out of here. So
you are.
Yeah, so that's why we have to take in consideration those things when we build a deck list.
So I believe
another
the next
thing is the other flex.
Sorry. Yeah, no, go ahead. I think we want to say the same thing anyway.
Yeah, another thing that we should take in consideration are how do we beat an Auphenis or a element Kashtira? And is there any other thing we should probably take in consideration?
So I remember immediately we jumped to the conclusion how sometimes you can just pair hand traps with power spells. We talked about Book of Eclipse a bunch. And when you look at decks like Kashtira, also tier elements when you're turning off their trap cards. And I remember us making a point about how crime is sort of declining a bit in some lists. So you might not even be that afraid of it anymore. You're turning off entire fields. And sometimes it's not only, I should be, building a version of a deck and just dedicating my flex spots to hand traps or just power spells. Sometimes when you really think about your spots, ratios, side deck, all of that, you can mash everything together. And Book of Eclipse, came to mind because it's that applicable against Kashtira, against tier, and all of that.
Yeah, so Book of Eclipse is definitely a card that we should highly take in consideration because it plays against Kashtira, plays against tier elements, plays against sort of every deck. Like it's not bad against everything, and it's a general out that we should definitely take in consideration. We are not committing into Bestials because I think Bestials are gonna get very bad with the upcoming triple tactical tasking, and any end trap that commits itself on the board is going to be a big issue because triple tactical tasking can add instant fusion to the opponent and can add the triple tactical talent in order to give him some extra lines, or can add a power spell like terraforming in order to get their field spell. So you really don't want to you really don't want to commit cards on the board if you really have to do that. Like if they have a triple tactical tasking at that point, they might just set a trap for the, and it's not really it's not so bad when they go for triple tactical tasking, set a trap instead of just adding a power spell. So if I have to choose an end trap or to choose something that might stop my opponent main line, and they have triple tactical tasking, is literally trading triple tactical tasking with a normal trap, which is kind of fine. But that's also why the Bestial are so bad right now, and I don't think we should overcommit on those. Then another point is, like, are we actually playing? We need also the best end trap, in my opinion, is Impermanence. Like, Impermanence is definitely a card that doesn't trigger, like, doesn't make alive a triple tactical tasking. It's also an end trap, so it's definitely a good card.
I agree 100%. I think Impermanence is going to be insane moving forward. I think it's going to be in pretty much every single deck list because it's not playing into anything and because it's insanely impactful as well. Like, you can actually use it, to try to prevent like Kashtira stuff from popping off, to try to prevent the kit, like Kit Kala's search and bring back and all of that just spirals out of control into multiple things, and you would rather prevent that. And drawing it as the 6th card is also really nice. And pretty much when you come to this point, like, we almost filled up the main deck, and then we started to come up with combos, and we started to sort of see like the cards we're using in them, how many cards we actually need for follow-up, how many normal summons do we need, at which points in time do we feel like, we get stopped by, unwanted things, because we almost filled up the main deck and we don't have that many flex spots filled up yet. So we might want to cut on some of these things in order to fill some other things in. And that's pretty much where we started to talk about.
So there are multiple things we start taking in consideration. First of all, we need something to deal with targeting, okay? So something to deal with the targeting like Kashtira, Fenrir, or Salik.
Salik, is a big one.
Yeah, Salik, or the tier elements. The tier elements that book monsters is...
Meta noise, Meta noise as well.
Yeah, meta noise, so meta noise, Salik. There are two things that can come in our mind. Like, there is actually one main come in our mind, and it was enemy controller.
Yeah. We talked about enemy controller,
We decided to take in consideration enemy controller. Enemy controller is good against your opponent ebling you. That's a thing that we should also take in consideration, because you are not the only one who's gonna ebly. Because ebly, the issue about ebly is the fact that if you cannot special your sprite, you will be locked on your normal summon. And if we are locked on our normal summon, they can just deal with it very easily. So it's something that we were taking in consideration. Dodge Salik is very big.
It is.
Dodge like meta noise is also very big. So it's something that we should take in consideration. And there is also another thing that we can take in consideration as well. Are we going to play triple tactical tasking in the main deck, or are we going to side it? Because I believe that the card is very powerful. And
that's another thing, And since we're on the topic of taking control, I want to just stay on this point a tiny bit longer. So we talked about change of heart as well. Because in this meta, a card like this is going to be really, really impactful against Kashtira in particular. And there's other things as well, obviously. And we talked about, we sort of spent a little bit of time talking about, change of heart, mind control, and actually the option of a deck playing a Rise Heart in the extra deck to be able to take their stuff, make a Rise Heart and just have it as like, the Macrocosmos and all of that. You're probably not going to be triggering the effect, because you would need to detach 3. But then we sort of like stopped talking about it, because it was like, we ran out of space in the extra deck. We started to feel like it might be too much of a commitment. So we talked about, having something that takes a monster just being sort of a way to break a board, not necessarily make your own Arise Heart and go to that route. But I still wanted to mention this in case anyone that has enough space and wants to play that kind of thing. You need to consider the entire meta. You need to consider the opposing decks. And, if you can take advantage of that, I think that's very, very useful. So we sort of left this in the side deck, and then moving on to other stuff. You mentioned the triple tactic tasking, and together with that, there's also talents. We can leave both of them over here actually to talk about them, because they work in tandem so well.
So triple tactical tasking is good if they are going to use the effect of Shangri-Hira during the standby phase.
Yes.
Because then triple tactical tasking is going to be live. You can use triple tactical tasking during the main phase. The Kashtira Rise Art is going to banish the tasking. Because of the continuous effect. Then a Rise Art mandatory effect is going to attach one card from the banish, which will make our talent live. And then at that point, we can use talent to steal. We can steal any Xyz at that point. Like, we can steal the Rise Art. I believe that current, like probably the best current, like the best action that your opponent should do, like should probably chain the Rise Art in order to banish a card on his board. Or to banish like the triple tactical talent or whatever. You can take like an Xyz and like switch in attack, or if it was in defense, or just attack and main phase to Zeus the entire board, because the deck, like the Kashtira deck, does not have battle protections at any sort. So we should definitely take in consideration this kind of route. And if we play a Zeus line in order to create our opponent board, we have also to take in consideration the fact that the Kashtira deck is going to banish one of our Zeus every time we go first, using the effect of
there's Diablosis.
Diablosis,
as well.
The effect of Diablosis. So first of all, we need to study the entire meta. We need to know what the other decks are going to do. We need to know how Kashtira is going to adapt, how Kashtira is going to play, how Kashtira can also play around triple tactical tasking, because there is also the consideration we have to do is the fact that if they have Arise Art, if they have Dabliosis, if they have Shangri-Hira, are they going to use the effect of Shangri-Hira during the stemma phase? They might as well not do it, and it will make our triple tactical tasking a lot worse. So there are multiple things to take in consideration. We need to know what our opponent is going to do. That's why the entire deck building does start with you studying the entire format and what people in the OCG are doing, and then adapt using our theory.
Basically, that was very well said. So I remembered as you were talking about tasking, there's the Aqua Mirror focalization as well. And that goes together with this engine. And I remembered it because your tasking can actually search it. So we figured, like, we looked at our deck and we said, okay, this is a target to actually search off of it. This is obviously a target. And if you actually decide to main it, obviously, and then if you decide to play a Talons, you can play like one copy maybe and have it be a target. And if you look at some OCG list, which we also did when on Road to the King, studied all of that, which is also a very good tip, I think. You know, you're just studying OCG and also studying other decks to prepare, like, what are they going to be putting up for you to consequentially play in your deck to be able to counter them. So we figured playing like one copy of something like they were doing actually makes sense. So pretty much where we stayed with this was we thought about maining this. So if we put this in, we're obviously at 43, which is not ideal. So we would need to start cutting on the engine and one additional of these. And I guess we could put two in the side for now. To just decide what we want to do with them later, because the card itself is insane in this format, I think. So it's most definitely something you probably should be playing.
Okay, so actually, talking about OCG players, OCG decklist, and OCG theory, I recently got in call with a player from Taiwan, which plays OCG, obviously. And he told me there is actually no source in the OCG like we have in TCG, like streamers or like websites, or like spreadsheet in order to see the deck lists that are floating around recently. Also, like the biggest event in OCG is not more than 1,000 people. Like it's literally the opposite of the TCG, when every Wisest right now recently is going over 2,000 people.
It's
like the biggest event in OCG.
For sure. Yeah, compared to them.
And the biggest regional in OCG like are 70 people. Like that's literally what he told me. And I was like, okay, but which source do I use to search for an OCG deck list except the Road of the King?
Yeah.
There is no website. He literally told me, you take the Japanese name on Google, like you write the name of the deck, you go on Google, you search it, the Japanese name, and then you copy paste it on Twitter. That's literally the OCG source for deck list right now.
So, moving on.
We reach this point. I think we start filling the extra deck and then
and then we start trimming the main deck. Yeah. All right. So we got
to gigantic, 12.
There's two. There's IP for sure. A very, very nice card in a deck like this. You can easily end on this with additional bodies. And then we started thinking about what are the cards that IP is actually going to go into.
Yeah. So we got Avramax. Avramax
was definitely a target, yes.
Then if we are playing the Ibli...
Yeah, okay. I figured you were going to want to go into this discussion, yeah.
I think we have to discuss it because, okay, so let's assume the fact that we're playing against Kashtira.
Yes.
And we are going to summon the Ibli. Now, the standard there, the board is going to be Elf on top, IP, and the Ritual Monster with a Smasher set. Yes. So that's literally our end board if we go for a 2-card combo. And we are talking about a line with Grim plus blue, which is not bad at all. Like, it's actually decent.
Yeah, it is.
And let's say, like, we are going to give him the Ibli. Now, what's going to happen is he's going to enter in main phase 1. He's going to switch the Ibli in attack, and he's going to enter in battle phase. I think we should let him enter in battle phase. There are some things that we can do in order to avoid the opponent Ibli to attack. It's a tech that was played back in the day. It's called Crusadia Equimax. Yes. Like, you can show it on stream.
Yeah, we talked about Crusadia.
It's a link tree. You can use your IP and your elf after you use the elf effect. So basically what's going to happen is he attempts to enter in battle phase, but you're going to use elf effect to special summon Jet from the graveyard. Jet is gonna add the starter, and then you can use IP to special summon Equimax. Equimax is gonna point to the Ibli because you're gonna summon it in zone number 2 and number 4, and it will not be able to attack. Now the issue with that is the fact that triple tactical tasking is gonna be an issue, especially if they have still a battle phase.
Your other issue was that Crusadia does nothing.
The other issue is also that the card sucks.
Yes.
So do you really want to run a flex spot in your extra deck that does absolutely nothing except for when you resolve your combo? And the answer to this was no. The same applies to Borrel Sword, but Borrel Sword is a little bit better because you can use it in different scenarios. You cannot take your opponent. My main issue with Borrel Sword was the fact that you will have to use the level 2 on the board that you reborn with Elf in order to summon it, and Smasher will have literally no level 2 on the board.
So again, we saw a negative thing about it,
So the only things that came in, the only thing that came in handy was Nightmare Unicorn. Why is it Nightmare Unicorn? Because our opponent is going to crush deeply. Now, the thing is, in main phase 2, our opponent is going to have the priority to perform the first action. So let's say our opponent is going to special summon a Fenrir. We have still the ritual monster on the board, so I don't think our opponent will be so stupid to use the effect of Fenrir. But what's going to happen is we can deal with that by using Elf, targeting the Ibli that got crushed and is in the graveyard to special summon it back, and then we use IP and Ibli to special summon Unicorn, which is gonna deal with this special summon, and also Ibli will go back in defense on our opponent board. And then
we still have
the only
Smashers to deal with the normal summon.
And then we have Smasher to deal with the normal summon, which because it will be the last basically option for our opponent if his end is only engine wise. Now if there are also the things to take in consideration is the fact, okay, but I do the combo, I crush my Ibli, but what if my opponent has talent? What if my opponent has tasking? How am I gonna deal with that? Well, you are gonna also have non-engine because like the entire combo we're talking about is done by 1 or 2 card engine, and I expect our deck also to have non-engine. That's why sometimes you're going to end with a carrot also on the board. Sometimes you're going to end with an impermanence as well. Sometimes you're going to end with an ash in your hand. So those are things also that we have to take in consideration. There is also the fact that you might open Book of Eclipse, so you will not have to use Unicorn, or you cannot really fight always engine or non-engine with engine. You will have also to rely on yourself opening with non-engine sometimes.
And that's why you need to play enough non-engine to actually make it so you open it.
Yes, so we're going to talk
another
about
thing
that,
we
and
can
we're
mention actually, if you want, we could talk about the calculator, like if anyone doesn't know. So yeah, we can discuss the calculator, but we can do it when we actually get back to the main deck. It's going to go more smoothly.
So Mannequin Cat is going to be important for our extra deck in order to go for the Ibli lock. We're going to explain the Ibli lock, how does it work, and how's the main combo. At least we're going to show the main combo just to let you guys understand how it's going to work. I think we need a removal. Onibimaru is the best removal as an Exist 2 to have in the deck. Sometimes there are going to be big bodies that you cannot deal with, and that's why Onibimaru is going to come in handy. Double Zeus and Downerd. Downerd is necessary.
It's usually necessary
for a 4 material Zeus in some spots. I believe Dark, the Charmer, might also come in handy in order to go Unicorn line.
We actually talked about Dark a lot, if you remember. Like, we talked about how it's not going to be that insane anymore, which is sort of wild. But like with Bestios falling off, you can't go for the clean stealing of Magnamut, getting your own Bestios. But then we figured like Dark is just to link climb into Unicorn at the end of the day, since you don't always need to go for Unicorn, with the Ibli log, with IP and all of that. It's still just a very nice form of removal. So we decided to keep Dark in, and there's also always a Dark target you're going to be able to steal. And in the mirror match, obviously stealing something like a blue or jet for your own plays is very, very nice. So there's that,
the Herald of the Pure Light. The Herald of the Pure Light is a card that people were
we can
hyping.
mention this as well, yeah.
People are hyping the Herald of the Pure Light. Is gonna come in handy in some spots, like also it comes up if you wanna summon the double ritual in some scenarios if you open too much engine. Do you need it? We're gonna discuss about it. We're gonna discuss if it's really necessary or when it comes up, combo wise. And then there is the tech, I believe. Like this is actually an
You're
insane
talking about
tech.
the Abyss, right?
The Abyss Keeper. The Abyss Keeper is necessary when you open too much engine. Now, we were trying to figure out what happens if you open stuff like Aqua Mirror Focalization plus Grim, or you open Grim plus Gishki Abyss in your hand. Like, how does that combo?
Yeah. So we comboed. What we did was we comboed. We talked about all of that, and we realized how it's like kind of weird not playing something like a Beastkeeper. Because when you end up opening these things, because you can always, have this perfect opening hand of 2 cards and a starter and 2 non-engine, because it's just not going to happen. And we realized how when you open a combination of the spell and Grim, for example, it's just going to be almost dead. It's not going to do anything for you to progress your combos. So we figured with putting this in, you're actually able to make your combo better when you open a hand that's more than likely going to be like an average hand you actually open. So we decided to put this in, and it's just insane. It just special summons a fish. So when you open the spell to actually get the fish, you have an additional body, which does a lot for your combos.
Yeah. So
but there's
after
also
this, I guess we can go back to the main deck. The main deck is...
Yeah.
Here is the thing about the main deck. There are too many engines. We have to talk about the amount of normal summons. And I guess we can pull the calculator at this point.
We can. Yeah.
Now, in our deck, how many cards do we want in our deck? We're going to try to run a clean 40 if we can.
40.
If we cannot, we're just going to add more cards to our main deck. Who cares? Yeah. Like, it's not going to be a big deal anyways.
So here is where you put in the number of successes you actually have and the number you're trying to calculate as you're building your deck.
Yeah, so we have right now 6-9 normal summon, including the spell.
Yeah.
So it's going to be 9 in 40, and the sample size is how many cards in hand. And the number of success in population is always 1 because we want to calculate one scenario.
Okay.
Okay, now here is the thing. The cumulative probability is for X measure or equal to 1 is 74%. That means that you're going to open 1 or more normal summon 74% of the time. You're going to only open exactly 1 43% of the time, and more than 1 31%. Opening multiple normal summon is not necessarily bad, but the issue is going second is going to hurt a lot, especially if we are going to have 6 cards in our hand, so the sample size is going to change to 6. So if we calculate with the sample size of 6...
We can do it with 6 as well.
We will see that now
we
have now a 40% of opening more than 1 normal summon going second. That's cannot happen. That literally cannot happen. If you do that going second, I might as well just pack your cards and go home. So we need a lower percentage to draw it going first, but we also need a lower percentage to draw it going second. And that's why we will have to trim our deck in order to reduce the normal summon deck.
Okay. So going back to the deck, that was one of the last things we talked about, but we could mention this, is we got to the realization of how Grim doesn't necessarily need to be at 3 copies because you essentially have it in the focalization as well. So we actually trimmed this to 2, and we were very satisfied with this ratio.
Yeah. I think 2 Grim was enough. 2 Gishki Abyss was also enough.
We talked about this. Maybe even having only 1, we considered this, but then we talked about the grind game, and that's also something you need to be considering. So we decided to still keep it at 2 copies. And then with the rituals, we spent how many hours did we spend talking about the rituals?
I believe 3-4 hours talking about the ritual.
I think it was 3 hours.
3 hours. Oh my God. Yeah.
So yeah. Go ahead.
So here is the thing about the ritual. The ritual spells, the ritual monster. The cards that add the ritual are and literally doing nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, now you can talk about Nash, but you can summon a ritual monster going second. Like if you open it, like then Nereimas, like yeah. Let's talk about it. Aqua Mirror. Aqua Mirror is the second ritual that we have on the second row.
Yeah.
Aqua Mirror is bad going first, bad going second.
Yeah.
The only good effect of this card is literally in the graveyard. Because if your opponent Kelbeck or Agido you and they start milling 5 and they mill too much of your engine, you can use this card to shuffle it back with a Gishki monster in your graveyard. Right? So this is something that we might take in consideration if we have to take in consideration that we are going to play against a Kashtira tier element or a tier element pure deck list, which is going to start milling from our deck. Because you're going to get milled like 5 or 10 cards, and this card might come in handy at that point, but it's also a brick. So at which point do we define if a card is good or not? If we talk about that specific interaction, this card is going to be good. If we talk about this card, drawing this card, going first or going second, in any other scenario, this card is going to be bad. Like very, very bad. And that's why we decided to cut it.
Yeah, that's why we cut it. And actually in tandem with all of that, since you already went on about the obvious problem, which is the Shizu tier element milling your resources, we can talk about like Pure Light as well. Like we were discussing its potential because it's actually able to give you cards back. And when they mill your stuff, it's just horrible, pretty much. And that's why we were also considering, having more copies of this. But we also decided to cut these ones to 1 at the end of the day, because even if they get milled, we realized after some sadness and that there's another engine we probably should be including. So for now, without mentioning that engine, we could cut this and go back to the ritual discussion and all of that. So even if they mill your stuff, sometimes it's just something you need to like just say, okay, it's going to happen. We need to deal with it in other ways. It still doesn't make us play a bunch of rituals and a bunch of ritual spells, because we are just breaking up our deck and it's making it even worse. So after all of that consideration, we decided to move the Ice Mirror to the side deck. I'm going to put it here for now, so we can read it easily, because it's very, very, very nice going second.
A ruling about this card, because it's a ruling we also searched about the Ice Mirror, you can actually tribute an opponent link monster, which is going to fulfill the entire requirement for the ritual summon.
Yeah.
So it's something that we should definitely take in consideration. This card is very weird. This card sucks a lot when you go first. I guess doesn't really suck a lot, especially against tier elements if they resolve an Phoenix, if they resolve a tier element Kashtira, because they are going to have a body on the board and you can use it for Ice Mirror. But generally speaking, this card is just like, it is weird. It's something that we might take in consideration to play in the main deck. We might take in consideration to play in the side deck.
Yes.
Is it necessary to play in the main deck or in the side deck? It's something that we have to discuss in the bit about.
We can just mention the rituals as well, I guess, since we were on the topic, because we ended up cutting this one. So I guess we can just discuss why we cut it. It's like, it's not bad, the effect is not bad. But what we discussed was having Gust Kraken, for example, in the side deck as an option for you to go first. You look at 2 cards, you get rid of them. It's not bad, but it's not worth running 2 of them to like swap them out, basically. So we ended up cutting this one. And then about the ratio of Nereimanas,
there is also another reason why I decided to play Gas Kraken, is the fact that you can actually add directly Gas Kraken with the Gishki Abyss,
with
the shark.
Abyss,
and it is very interesting, because like if you go for a turn 1 combo, or if you go for like if you already have access or you got milled your Gishki Vision that adds the ritual monster, you don't have a lot of ways to get it back otherwise you have to go -2 in order to go into a pure light in order to add it back. And then you have to use the effect in order to add the ritual. When the ritual goes crack, and you can just add it directly to your end.
Yep.
And it was interesting because it's just better than the other ones, and it's also just better to look at your opponent and then knowing which option he runs, like what he has to fight you. It's just better card design, in my opinion.
Yeah, better card overall. So that's what we decided on ultimately. And I guess the ratio of Neremanas, we were also saying how, there's lines with pure light, obviously. But I guess right now we can segue into the thing we wanted to discuss. The other engine we decided to ultimately run, and it made us cut a copy of this, cut Herald of Pure Light as well, and basically that's what
this was a sad realization.
It was.
This was a very sad realization because we both were against running this sort of engine in the deck.
Yes. And mainly it was because of the amount of normal summons.
Yeah.
And
this was a very sad realization.
It was. We were working for like 3 or 4 hours something, and we were also so hyped about how the main deck is looking. And then we were like, Ishizu cards are going to mill all of our stuff. We're not going to be able to combo. So I guess it's actually a good thing that it happened, right? Because it's like IRL representation of how, it doesn't always work in your favor and you need to adapt to the meta. So we were talking about how, you see builds, combos online if you look them up. And there's versions with 2 Beaver, 1 Angler, which doesn't make a lot of sense. If you decide to run it, you need to be playing 3 and 2 because it's how actually your combo is going to go through perfectly and just work. But then you need to cut a bunch of things. You need to have more normal summons, which we were against anyway. And you need to also put Sprint in your extra deck. So we decided to cut this and round out the extra deck that way, basically.
Yeah. So it is the thing. We decided to cut 1 ritual and to play 1 ritual and to play just 1 vision and the Gishki Shadow. Now, here is the thing about this engine. Now, when we were considering a mill 5, we were considering multiple situations. We were considering what if our opponent mills the Neremas, but that's not the main issue. What happens if our opponent is gonna mill Gishki Vision? Now, what happens if our opponent mills Gishki Vision? Well, that's very sad because at that point, that you should run a multiple copy of the Gishki Vision if you think about it, but
like what we were talking about when what Nash mentioned, when it comes to multiple copies, a good comparison he drew was when you look at like a Tri-Brigade spread version or something like that. What ended up happening with these versions was that the Spright engine ended up being trimmed, like hardcore trimmed. People would cut a bunch of things in order to increase the ratios of other engines. But what we wanted to do, or actually didn't want to do, is we didn't want to trim Spright stuff in order to play a huge Gishki engine, because at the end of the day, it is a Spright deck with the Gishki engine. And it was our preference. And we talked about how there's 2 options. You can literally build a deck from scratch and you can put a bigger Gishki count, like we said at the beginning, or you can just try to, I guess, sort of supplement with the Nimble stuff, which we said, it's not bad. At the end of the day, it's not horrible, even though it's not ideal. And Sprint is still a nice card. And if they mill your Angler, you get bodies, which is also fine. So that's where we went. That's the route we went.
Yeah. So basically, the issue would be what happens if your opponent mills Gishki Vision? Then you don't have any way to reach your ritual anymore except with the focalization.
Yeah.
What happens if your opponent mills Gishki Shadow? Then that means that you don't have any way to reach the ritual spell. So basically, if they mill the one-offs, then your deck is kinda dead on the rituals and on the ritual spell.
Yeah.
And that means that, as Mia said, you should play multiple of those and you should trim the Spright engine, but the Spright engine is so good, especially with start and stuff like that. And there is a doable approach that you can take in which you run mod Gishki, but the Gishki are worse going second, in my opinion, than the Spright engine. And that's why we decided to take this route. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to take the risk of our opponent milling our Gishki engine. But the thing is, with the Nimble Beaver, the engine is not so bad. Yeah. Even if he starts milling stuff from our deck, I don't think the deck gets a lot worse going second. And also because you have also the chance to mill the Nimble Beaver. It's decent. It's something that we should take definitely in consideration.
Yeah. So that's pretty much where we stayed. And then we were like, okay, I think after that many hours and that much sadness when it comes to Nimble stuff, we can move on to the flex spots again, because we were heavily considering, obviously, tasking. We mentioned talents, and we also talked about moving this to the main deck, actually, and changing this out to put it in the side deck. Cards do seem a tiny bit more specific. And the enemy controller is also nice to prevent Ibli from attacking and crushing. So that's pretty much what it is. You know, when you go over 40, it's like, I think at least, if you go over 40 for a very specific reason, and you know your stuff, you know your ratios, and you know it's not that bad, I don't think it's such an issue. So with 41, I don't think it's bad, pretty much.
I mean, we can also cut one focalization if you really want, in order to decrease our number of normal summons. And I don't think like that's so horrible, to be honest with you. Like it's okay.
Just like cutting Grim. So this is an option as well, pretty much.
Yeah, I think it's okay. Like I don't think it's the end of the world to do it. I think it's okay to do it. And also consider that the Nimble stuff the Nimble is fish, right? Like so, it works with the Abyss.
The MVP of the extra deck.
Yeah, I think being a fish, like it also kind of works. So it's
it does
kind of right. I know the deck seems very strange right now, but we had to fix the amount of normal summons.
We did.
So it's 3 Beaver, 2 Grim,
and 2 focalization.
Yeah, it's still 9. It's a lot. It's honestly a lot. But if you cut 1 Angler and you cut 1 Beaver, then your normal summon Beaver doesn't do it.
Yeah, like to us, it just made 0 sense. Like we were just like, no, it's not happening. Like if you're playing it, you need to be running 3 and 2, and it's just what it is, pretty much. And you still have like 12 flex spots. So
yeah, so enemy controller works with your normal summon. So kinda it works if you commit like with the amount of normal summon you have, which is a lot actually. Like it's actually a lot. Having enemy controller in order to utilize your normal summon as a bait for regardless targets like Salik or like the other tier elements that book can be okay-ish. Book of Eclipse, preventing your opponent to have live traps like Salik is also okay, because they need to have them face up. And there is only one thing that we actually cannot fix, or maybe we can fix, but we will have to build another version of the deck. Is the fact that if they start milling 5 and we eat Angler and we special summon double Beaver with Angler, that makes their triple tactical tasking live. Which is a concession that we have to make at that point, because they're gonna, and if they meet 5 and they get huge pluses, it's not something that we cannot prevent. And at that point, should just take in consideration to not run Gishki. If you really think that's gonna be,
you can just cut the entire Gishki stuff. It's fine.
Like literally that. Like it's gonna be literally that.
It's still very nice though. You don't need to cut Gishki stuff.
It is nice. It is nice. It is nice. It is nice. But if I have to think about the amount of flex spot, the amount of cards that are engine relevant, maybe the Gishki might not be the correct approach to the deck. Because it is a very hard and sad realization that the engine is too big.
It's huge. And you can play it as like a big engine, like we discussed before. But I also want to, say like to end all of this, like the discussion about the Gishki stuff on a positive note is like, sometimes it's just cool to have a little like sit down a theory session and just realize something might not be working, because then for a fact why that is, as opposed to you throwing like a pile together of ratios and stuff that just makes zero sense, expect to like for everything to just work together, and when it doesn't, you're like, why is that? Well, it's obvious because you put zero thought in it. So like, even if you realize something is bad, that's not that horrible, because at least you know it, if that makes sense.
To be honest, the only way we can, the only way to fix the deck probably would be actually play more cards in the deck. Like that's possibly the only consideration that we might take, because having 9 normal summon in the deck is like, it's actually a lot. And the only way we can fix this ratio, basically, this is basically the discussion we were having about why we go over 40, why we stay on 40.
Yeah,
we stay on 40 if we have enough flex spots, the engine is not wavy, and like our combo is solid, if our combo is solid with 5-6 normal summons, we have enough flex spot, like 13-14 flex spots, and then the extender are also like from 7 to 8 extenders as well, then we can stay on 40. But what happens when you move over 40? What you're gonna lose when you move over 40 is literally just card quality. Like the card quality means the chance to see exactly a copy of a card that you need, like for example 1 Ash Blossom, like 1 Impermanence if you really need it. But if you need a generic card that acts like Impermanence, that acts like Ash Blossom, and you don't really need that specific effect, like Ash Blossom is similar but not the same as Ghost of Bell, Impermanence is similar but not the same Veiler or Ghost of Mourner. So like, if you need multiple cards that can fulfill the same slot, then you can move over 40. In this case, I believe we have so many normal that we might have possibly to move over 40, just running more non-engine cards in order to balance the amount of normal summons, amount of non-engine cards. And we might decide to play 3 Tasking 2 Talent in the main deck, or we might decide to play other entraps like Droll and Lockhart in the main deck. Then that's a thing that we might take in consideration.
That's a very good point, actually. We did talk about Droll. We actually put it in the side deck. We said that it's a very, very nice card moving forward. It's insane against Kashtira, so Kashtira and Kashtir, and also Flunder. For example, Draco Slayer, which, again, I've been hyping up Draco Slayer for like a couple months. I think it's nice. I think it's going to be very cool. Maybe post the ban list, although with Draco Slayer, there's the issue of Kashtira locking Pendulum Zones, which, it's horrible. But basically, this was a consideration, like he said. And if we move this, for example, to the main deck, if we do 2 talents, maybe, or we could put 3 here and then figure out the rest over here, because I think it's very, very important to to think about what you're going to be taking out when you're siding and what you're going to be putting in.
I think 2 talent is enough, especially if they're gonna go for the mill, and also consider Tasking as a sort of Aqua Mirror focalization. If you think about it, like it's also another copy of Aqua Mirror focalization. So it's okay, like it's good. I believe that we have to run this amount of cards, to be honest, in order to balance the amount of normal summons, the amount of extender, and the amount of flex spot. Moving on 45, I don't think it's bad. I think it's actually the correct move here.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. It makes
sense. In the side deck, then I believe we need more cards to fight general deck lists, like for example Dark Ruler No More. We can play 3 Dark Ruler No More or 1 Dark Ruler No More to search with Tasking.
Yeah, but since we moved all of that to the main, we could actually put in 3 and just for now. And we also, what we did was we talked about how we literally like we pull cards, put them down here, made a list of cards that we can actually take out, made a list of like 5 or 6 cards, because you probably shouldn't be taking out when you're siding more than 6, maybe 7 maximum cards. In a 40 list, for example. This is obviously over 40, but just general advice. And then we talked about which cards would you actually be siding to put them in and make the main deck actually better, you know, in comparison, because we have very strong cards in the main deck already in this deck. So you need to like side actual impactful cards. Another card we actually considered was Nibiru. So we talked about
Nibiru I think should be played. I think Nibiru is a very strong card against Kashtira. It's a very strong card. It's a very good card.
Yeah, so we talked about Nibiru. We actually talked about how using Nibiru against Branded, if it's on the 5th summon, when Cartesia activates the effect, you blow up the entire board, which is really, really nice. And we also talked about Harpies, because it's a target for tasking as well.
Yeah.
So
then Change of Art. I believe Change of Art is just a general good card. We already put that here. Mm-hmm. And I believe that the last slot should be something to still utilize the tasking. It's maybe an evenly match.
We talked about mind control. I just wanted to mention why we said this might not be that great. So we said that this, in comparison to Change of Heart, for example, it's much worse. And also because you're not playing a Rise Heart in the extra deck. With a Rise Heart, this could be a good option. But we decided, like you guys see, the extra deck is insanely tight here. So we just decided to omit mind control for now. But evenly is actually a very good idea. So...
yeah, I kind of want to cut the Dark Ruler to 1 and keep multiple evenly. I think evenly is a very good attack.
It's also an option. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, actually, I think it's...
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think I'm very satisfied with this, to be honest.
I think overall tasking is such a cool card to utilize, because you can actually cut cards down to 1 to be able to fit multiple other things in, because you can search them anyways. I
think, maybe we could improve something in the future, but as a clean... in my opinion, as a clean deck list to start the format, or to like try to read the format, I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's okay-ish. Like I think it's a good read. I would say it's a good read for the next format. Like everything has a reason. Like you have the ritual in the side deck, because you can side it every time you go first, and it's just insane. You have the ritual spell. The new ritual spell that's the Gishki Ice Mirror every time you go second, because you can tribute your opponent monster. But when you go first and you draw that card, this is just another dead card that you will have to take in consideration, because it's just bad when you draw it when you go first. And the deck is basically focused to going first. We decided to go over 40 in order to amortize
to basically neutralize and sort of
neutralize the amount of normal summon that we have in our deck, because it was too many, in my opinion, that we will have to balance the amount of non-engine slots. Then someone could say, okay, Nesh, but then you could play 1 talent. I mean, again, the issue of 1 talent is the fact, if they start milling from your deck and they eat the 1 talent, you don't have any way to recycle it. And not having any way to recycle flex spots, especially with a card like Tasking, you cannot really run one-offs. You can run one-offs in a deck like Kashtira Tier Elements, in a deck like Tier Elements, but you cannot run one-offs in a deck that's going to fight against Kashtira Tier Elements or Tier Elements Pure, that's going to start milling from the top of your deck. Yeah.
So that's where we left off. And basically another thing we did... like all the time, pretty much. And like we said, we spent multiple hours talking about this, theorizing this. We comboed every single time. Like Nash would just jump into solo mode, share the screen for me, and we would just make combos, try to see what's happening, what are we missing, what's going on, 1 card combo, 2 card combos, all of that. So I figure, if you guys are up for it, and if Nesh is up for it, of course, we can also make a follow-up video of combos for Gishki Spright, because we did talk about them a lot, and we can work on that
definitely.
even more. We did, yes.
we will run a combo section for this deck, explaining all the thoughts and why the combos are also related to the deck building strategies. Like, why do you build a deck in a certain way in order to perform the most optimal combo? Like, for example, why we decided to run Abyss Keeper. The deck is still changing, by the way. Like, me and her are talking, and we'll still running different ideas.
Yeah.
For example, the deck was a clean 40. Then we decided to go on a 45 list. Then we decided we were starting without Nimble Beaver. Then we decided to put the Nimble Beaver because there are so many things to take in consideration that it's actually impossible to do it.
Yeah.
But you can reach a point in which you can be very close but not hitting the point. And I believe that right now, as this deck list is looking, I think we are very close. Maybe we didn't hit the point yet, but I think as a general idea, coming into the Photon Hypernova format, this is going to help a lot to people that are not very expert in deck building, or they are approaching the game they are approaching the game, like they started approaching the game like last year, last 2 years.
That was very well said. I probably don't even need to do the outro. He did the work for me, so it's like it's whatever. It's cool. No, that was really nice. It's of utmost importance to do combos while you are deck building, because you need to know what's going on. So because of that, we want to release a part 2 to this like deck building guide series, tackling the Spright Gishki stuff. So that's sort of like a spoiler, or like a sort of hype for the next video. Be on the lookout, guys. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss when it drops. But we are going to have a video for you guys of Spright Gishki combos. So I think with that, we can go to sleep. It's like 1 a.m. where we're from. So I think I need to let Nash go. And I'm very glad for you to have joined me today, basically.
Well, what can I say? Keep up the go and see the line.
Thank you guys for watching. Check out all of his socials, which I'll have in the description box down below. Like the video if you liked it, and please comment if we taught you anything new, and I'll see you in the next one, guys. Peace.